Welcome to our QBM Marketing Planning Series, and thank you once again for joining us. I'm Madalen Ross, QBM Trader Connect Program Manager, and once again we've got the wonderful Peter Topping, SBMS Mentor and expert in online marketing, joining us to give this presentation. Each month we've been trying to provide some insight into what you can achieve by piggybacking on QVM's marketing events and planning, so that you can be right on top of what's happening at QVM and sharing those events on your social media. And in addition, we're helping you out with digital marketing tips, specifically with your clientele and how you can proceed to get more information out there. So this month we're looking at another subject, and I'm going to hand over to Peter now to take you through that. So welcome, Peter, and thanks for joining us.
So thank you, Madalen. I'd just like to start by saying each week we talk about changing things up and keeping things fresh. And this week, those of you who've come regularly will notice that we've got a new landing screen with the mentoring workshops and training and a new color. And so it's good to be actually doing the things that we talk about rather than just talking about doing the things that other people should do. So we might take two. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can.
Great. All right. So just back one step, I was just thanking Madalen for giving me the opportunity to present yet again, and just talking about the fact that we now have a slightly newer look on our landing page, switching from white to blue, and things like that need to be done regularly, obviously just to refresh your attention, because especially when you do a monthly or a weekly, you tend to hit a bit of a rut, and then people pay less attention. So thank you, Madalen, for adjusting the branding and the graphics for me. This week, what we're going to talk about, again, as usual, is a quick review of the Trader Bulletin and where it fits into the program that we're talking about. There's always something in the Trader Bulletin, and there's always something that you can do with the Trader Bulletin. And we've talked about Google Ads, we've talked about a little bit about social media, and we've talked a bit about developing your own brand and leveraging the resources, which we'd call, third-party leverage. So this week, when we look at it again, we look at the Trader Bulletin, and we've got the Donut Festival. That is obviously something that you can talk about in any social media situation. Unless you're a diet brand, there is basically no company that doesn't benefit from talking about donuts, especially on a day like today in Melbourne, where it's 11 degrees and it's cold and wintry. So that festival is still on, and you can use that both in EDMs, direct marketing, and also in your social media. It's worth talking about. Other things that are out there on the Trader Bulletin that are coming up, obviously the winter night market, the truffle season, and the craftwork market is probably the trilogy of things that that come to our attention. All of them have a slightly different demographic, and even if you're not trading during those, you can still use those features to talk about in your social media marketing and also in your EDMs, because the client doesn't come to the market just to see you. They generally come to the market for an experience. And as we've said, QVM spends a lot of time and money developing these, providing us with graphics and giving us a bit of a narrative. So even on this screen, if you were to download the pictures and use those on your social media posts, you've got at least 3 posts for the week that you can do. If when we talk about email marketing, you decide that you want to put in something which is not product, then you've got a couple of options here to engage your clients with if you're a bit light on content and you just want to reach out to your database. So thanks again to the market for doing a great job and providing us with great content. I would still go back to encouraging you to do it. In terms of small business, our focus is usually on making transactions, making sales, boosting the bottom line, and less on doing things that are about our own brand because of our size. And so I'll come back to that, which is the dizzy deals. Madalen and I were talking about this during the week. There's no reason that you shouldn't have presented a dizzy deal, right? It's an opportunity for you to get out there and put a couple of products up there It's transaction focused. It's all about making sales, and it doesn't require you to do much. So it's in by Monday night for the inclusion the following Thursday. It's still running. If you haven't done it, I would urge you to give it an experiment, spend a bit of time and see if you can come up with something that'll make some sales.
QVM are choosing about 8 deals a week. So, it's a great opportunity to put something out there and make sure that it's a really good deal so that you can then encourage customers to purchase something else while they're at your store. There's been some very successful deals that have come through that I've heard of. So it's worth having a try and giving something of value, trying it out.
Yeah, so just to step back through the Trader Bulletin, if you look at what they've done, right, we've got a food-based product here, which is a donut festival that appeals to young and old. It's a short-term deal. It's happening this Saturday and Sunday. They provided a great graphic. Then you step onto the next sort of things that we've got. We've got the winter night market, which is a longer-term proposition. And again, it appeals to an inner city demographic of people who want to go out, who are looking for an alternative and things to do. We've got a gourmet offer, which is truffle season at the Queen Vic Market. And then we've got craft work. And obviously that is an initiative by the market and the City of Melbourne to try and introduce younger designers and younger vendors who are creating unique products that are not just manufactured offshore and sold at a cheap price in general merchandise. They're really looking to refresh the brand. And if your product is sympathetic with that, or it's complementary to that, or you're in the zone of that, then by all means use that and promote that, because we all benefit from foot traffic in the market, and it's a holistic perspective. So they've thought it through quite well temporally and with the different demographics that they're going for. So you may as well get involved and leverage that benefit. And the Dizzy Deals, that's slightly separate because that's a channel. You've got your direct channel of people coming in. You've got a channel on email. You've got a channel on Facebook and social media. You've got a channel on your website. And this is another channel. And even if you only pick up 1 or 2 transactions, it's all about having another channel in which to make money. So it's been well thought through, and I'd encourage you to take part in it. So I'm going to go over quickly what we covered last month. Last month we looked at the anatomy of a good web page, and my real focus was that Google wants structure and organization. And along with the structure and organization, it wants good contents and it wants good links. If it's got good structure, good organization, good content, and good links, then it wants the ability to get around, right? It wants to be able to navigate your site easily and to therefore put you forward to the client as a reputable, well-organized piece of technology and a well-branded product. So I then went on to talk about best practices, and I basically hashed up about 14 or 15 points of what I thought were the best practices for a page structure. And the key takeaway wasn't that you needed to do all of them. The key takeaway was to pick the easiest ones and do them, right? So if there's only 1 out of the 14 that you can work on, go for it, right? If there's 2, fantastic. 3, 4, whatever. It's an ongoing process. I don't expect anyone to smash out 14 of them or to feel stressed about not doing 14 of them. It's a list, and we've all got skills and we've all got areas of weaknesses. Just work on the ones that you really feel that you can approach first, and then get to the second lot later on. So the last one was make sure your site or your social media marketing or your EDMs look good on mobile. I'm going to come back to that again because it is really, really important. And I put it last because I wanted to talk about it last, right? We live in a mobile world. So this week we're going to talk about email marketing, and sometimes email marketing has a lot of different names which get confusing. So some people call it EDMs, some people call it electronic direct marketing, some people call it electronic direct mail, emails and mails. It's all the same thing. Really, it's the commercial use of email in order to spread news and information about your brand, and in order to try and acquire sign-ups and transactions. That's really what we're using it for. So there's a lot of crossover between this month and last month, which is one of the reasons why the 2 topics go together, because some of the requirements are very, very similar. So technically a web page and an EDM, Google wants to have a good spam filter friendly title, right? So the title of your email needs to not fall into spam, and the title of your web page needs to tell Google what it's all about, right? Both need to be mobile friendly. Both need to have a point, right? Like, what is the point of the page and who's it written for? They've both got to have a target market. An email has to have a point and it has to have a target market. When we talk about emails, we need to have, in our title, we need to have one that attacks the attention of the reader. So in last week, we talked about meta headers and page titles. They've got to attract the attention of the reader. They have to have good headings and subheadings to show that they're well organized, but also so the reader can scan through them. And then both have got to have links to product, brand, and social media. And lastly, they've got to have a call to action, which is, what do you want the customer to do? Open your email, great. Have a scan through, great. You've got some great content, but what do you want them to do, right? If you want them to buy something, that's great. If you want them to look at a product, that's great. If you want them to visit a website, that's great. If you want them to sign up to your social media or your newsletter, that's great. But you've got to have a call to action. You've got to think about it and plan it before you do it, right? So it's a bit like a landing page. So there's plenty of crossover between the two. One of the questions that came out a few weeks previously was, how should you write? And so when we talked about page content last week, we talked a little bit about sort of key tips, short paragraphs using headings and bullet points, etc. There was one I would add to it, right? When you write an EDM, short, sharp, and to the point, because people scan, they don't read. Most people read emails on this, okay? And they do it while they're doing something else, and they read it one-handed, right? And they've often got a cup of coffee, they're talking, they're having a conversation, they're multitasking. So bear in mind, they're not sitting down paying attention to what you're doing. If you are, you're very lucky, but most people are having a quick flick. So let's bear that in mind when we write them. So does anyone need an extra email? I mean, my answer is probably not, okay? Oops, hang on a second. Sorry, I've got some technical issues here. Okay. So, sorry, I've got a technical issue here. It's skipping ahead. Just 1 second. So, I'm going to go back a screen. Can you see me again? I hope
yes,
so.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so I was saying before it started skipping ahead, does anyone need an extra email? The answer is probably not, right? But that doesn't really matter because we're going to send our emails anyway, okay? And we're going to send our emails in the best possible way in which we can imagine, and we're going to try and do the best possible job that we can imagine. The reason you should send an email anyway is the research shows that for most companies, it's the most effective form of marketing, okay? If you do pay-per-click, you do Facebook advertising, or you pay to be on an affiliate network, it costs money. Email costs time, yeah? And although time is expensive, and if you've got a very large database, you do pay to send some of the volume. By and large, email is very cost effective. You're paying someone to do Google AdWords, right? You're paying someone to do Facebook ads. You're paying someone to manage affiliate networks, right? But with email, you're just paying them to deliver and develop email. So you're only paying for the time. You're not actually paying for the traffic. So in 2022, email does work. And although open rates might be less and the volume of emails that people send might be greater, in terms of acquiring transaction, it works, right? That's what all the research shows. Does it work with young people? The evidence would be it's less effective with the under 25s. The younger you are, the lower your socioeconomic status, the less likely you are to read email. Okay, so I'll put some caveats on that, in terms of how well it works. And we don't know how that's going to transpire. There's not enough information around yet. So the key challenge that SMEs have is that when you go on to the internet and you look at email marketing, most of the material is not aimed at people who are market traders. Okay, it's aimed at bigger companies. Most of the educational material is aimed at companies with a marketing plan. A lot of people have a loose idea in the market of what they've got. They've got a bit of a marketing plan. A lot of it's in their head. Most of the material assumes that you've got a lot of resources. So you've got assumes that as a business leader, you've got someone executing your marketing for you, and you've got a marketing platform like HubSpot. And that is not always the case, right? So traders and small businesses have got the database they've got, right? And often that's acquired over years, and it's been a bit ad hoc, and they've gone through different systems and they've collected email addresses at different times, right? Traders are generally time poor. One of the lessons and feedback we've had from here is, I don't have time, or I find it really difficult to manage my website, do my social media, etc., etc. So you've got to acknowledge you've only got the time that you've got, right? And most traders have got a limited skill set, and they're learning and developing, especially during COVID, and people have made massive progress and massive leaps and bounds. But they're not a 25-year-old who's popped out of RMIT with a marketing degree and who knows a lot about a lot. So the last point is, most traders are transaction driven. They're not really building a brand. That's part of their plan. They're really on the web to acquire additional sales for their small business. So it's important to remember your context, right? If you are time poor, just do what you can do. Develop your skills as you go along. It's okay to focus on transactions, and don't worry about your database. The database you've got is the database you've got, so you may as well get on with it. So you have to start somewhere, and that might be just tidying up around the edges, right, to build your confidence. Okay, so one of the key things you meet, usually about a minute or 2 minutes into any of the educational videos, says you've got to segment your database, right? But they're not very good at telling you how to segment your database and into what, right? So I would say, if you can't segment your database, don't worry. And I'll give you some basic ideas on the most fundamental kind of segmentation that you can do. Again, they'll tell you, don't just try and sell things on the internet. Like I said in the previous slide, that's okay. If you want to just sell things, just do it, right? I'd rather you tried a transactional approach and kept at it and got a few sales than you didn't do anything. If you just need to sell more inventory and that's the goal, right? You don't have to have a complex marketing plan. It helps to have a marketing plan. It helps to have a vision. It helps to have a brand. It helps to have all of those things. But if you want to move some inventory and you want to engage in an EDM list and you haven't segmented your market, it's okay. You can still do email marketing. I would encourage you to start and get good at it. The only way you get good at things is to practice them. So when we talk about segmentation, in theory, we should send targeted, personalized emails to individuals who we know things about, and that we make different product offerings to. When you're a small business, that's not always possible. Okay, so how do we break our marketing down and try and make it more focused? Like, who's important? How do we work that out? People who've purchased from you already, right, and people who've purchased from you online are the key segment that you can break out. So you should be able to look in Shopify, or you can look in WooCommerce, or you can look in your WordPress site, or you can look in your Excel sheet, or you can look in your database, and you can see the names and the details of all the people who've actually purchased from you. And not everyone collects email addresses for people who purchase offline, but increasingly you're all getting really good at it. Don't be shy, ask for one. The next group of people is people who've inquired online or opted in to receive communications of some type from you, right? Now, they're people who have come close, right? They might have abandoned a shopping cart. They might have just made a general inquiry. These people like you for some reason. They've discovered your brand. They've looked at your website, and they've talked to you about your product. It might not be that they've rejected you. It might be that they've just made a different decision this time, right? So they're close and they're worth pursuing. Then you've got people who've signed up via the newsletter or other marketing lines. They've liked you on Facebook, and you've come into, you've acquired their email address or contact details in various ways, right? But they haven't bought anything from you. They're qualified links because they've already found you via various methodology. And those people are really prospects, right? So other people that you've got emails or inquiries for that you can put under a general sort of group of prospects. So the key thing is people who've already bought from you, people who've inquired, and others, right? Lastly, a few words about AdMart. That's Australian direct marketing. There's a fair few rules around privacy that we don't really have time to go into, but the most important thing is that you don't share your email addresses that you have with other people. if someone has opted out from marketing on your website or asked not to be included, that you don't ever email them. And lastly, that you have an unsubscribe option on your site and that you check it and you follow through, right? They're probably the key areas where we want to go through. Don't breach anyone's privacy by including their email in a big group on the top, right? Make sure if they've opted out, you don't contact them because they've opted out for a reason and that's their right. And make sure they always have the option to unsubscribe, right? Now, we can look in that in more detail at another time, but those are the three sort of cardinal rules about sending out emails. So, and they're easy to check. So, moving along. Okay. So why segment people like this, right? The reason that you segment people like this is that if someone's already bought something from you on or offline, or they've inquired, the brand job has been done, as I've said, right? So the hardest thing that we do on the internet is to get someone to open our website, okay? Come to our social media, go from our social media to our website and to actually look at our product and or service. That's the most difficult thing to do. There are millions and millions of options out there. And if we get someone who lands on our site, then that's a real win. If we get any details about them, that's an even bigger win. The brand job is done, the trust has been gained, the product's been validated, and the service has been validated, right? Now it's up to us to lose them, right? They're ours to lose. What we've got to do is get the key things right. Right product, right price, right time, right communication. Yep. So once they've been there, they're ours to lose. And this is why I think they're worth going back to time and time again. So before we send our first email, right, you've got to have a few questions in your mind that you've got to answer. Why am I sending it and what's the offer? Okay. Before you start typing, just take 10 seconds to scratch it down. Is it just to boost sales? Is it to get rid of inventory, new inventory? Is it because there's an opportunity that's there due to a change of season, a public holiday, a long weekend, change of sporting brands? Is there a world event that's on? Is there a world day that's on? Like Earth Day or something like that. Are the big players in the business having a sale that you can leverage off? Are your competitors out there communicating with people? Is it in the financial year, right? So why are you sending it, right? That's the key thing that we've got to bear in mind. And most small businesses want sales, right? So we're there really to move inventory, and then we're looking for the reason that we've got to communicate. The next thing is, what's the offer? Okay, if you're just putting out the stuff that's on your website, that's okay. You've got to carefully select what you think is going to sell well, and the easiest way to do that is to look at what's already sold well before you sell your product. Or is there another kind of offer you want to put around it based on price, based on the fact that there's limited amounts available? Is it, exclusivity? Is it fear of missing out, etc.? So think about what your offer is before you actually start the email, right? Why am I sending it and what's my offer? Those are the two basic things. Then you're ready to start. So when we do an EDM, and again, you can do hours and hours and hours of these courses online and they take a really long time, but I'm going to squash it into a few minutes, right? We need a good title. Yep. We need product and engagement. A little bit of yourself in the companies always works well. We need to make sure the links we've got in there are working. And when we've written our email, we need to make sure that the key message is above the fold, right? And that's above the fold on this, not on whatever screen you're working on, right? It's above the fold on this. So it has to work on a mobile, and we have to have tested it, and we have to have a way of measuring whether it was successful. Right? And obviously you can say, well, it was successful if someone made sales, right? But you have to have a system to know whether you did that or not. So that's your preparation, right? We know what we're going to sell. We know what our offer is. We need to pick a good title. Then we look at the content of our email, and we've decided the balance of product and engagement. Have we got a little bit of something about ourselves in there? And then the rest is to a certain extent presentation and technical. Yep. So that's the basis of an EDM. So what I've done is I've just gone through and done some screenshots on EDMs that are sitting around in Gmail, right? And and you can see basically some people they send them from names, Some people send them from brands, and there's different there's different strategies which they've tried to affect, right? Now, what's surprising for me is this one here, Lucky CRE, check your account. That appears to be spam. So I wonder how that one got through, because I'm going to tell you, when you pick a title, don't pick a spammy title. And for some reason that one has got through. So you can generally see the kinds of things that they use as titles. The difference between looking at the promotions that you've got, it usually means I've signed up or opted in for something. So my email spam filters being a bit more, a bit more lenient than you have. So stronger than fear, verification, 5 things I love, visit historical Italy, sensational Shiraz, right? Or don't miss out on your chance. So those are the kind of, newsletter titles that people use, right? The key thing about an email is getting it through to the customer, right? Even if your email is a bad email, if it gets through the customer, it still had a win. Most of us have spam filters, and most businesses have a spam filter. And if people are using company mail, those spam filters are pretty effective. So you don't want your email to look like junk, right? And the thing that makes them look like junk is lots of hype, lots of symbols, lots of flashing letters, lots of sale, 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 discount, price, don't miss out kind of statements, right? When a spam filter looks at an email, first of all, they look at who it comes from. So that, does it say sales at mystery company 1234.nu, or does it say, sales at mybrand.com.au, or what does it look like, right? And they try and make a judgment based on whether that email is coming from a bot or not, right? Then they look at the title and they think, is this likely to contain spam? So if your title is too hyped, too many capital letters, too much italics, too many different colors, you're probably going to end up in spam before you even get a chance to before you get a chance to get to the customer. So even if you get through there technically and your email arrives, right, your title's still got to be good enough for the customer to decide to open it. Yeah. So the title is the key thing, and that's the first hurdle with the customer. The first hurdle is the spam filter. We've got through the spam filter. We've arrived in the email. The second hurdle is having a title that makes the customer want to open the email. Unless they love your product and they really love your brand, or you're a great writer, they've generally, if we're selling a product, they've got to have a reason to open it. And the reason they open it is based on the title. So put as much time and effort into creating a title as you can, right? It is a really, really worthwhile activity, because once the title is attractive and they open the email, again, they're now ours to lose. We've got over the first 2 hurdles. We've got a chance of running the rest of the race, okay? When they open their email, don't make it too difficult for the customer. All the customer's got to do is thumb up and down the page, right? But for some people, if it's not attractive, that's too much. They can't be bothered, right? And the reason they can't be bothered is too much text and they're trying to read it on the phone. There's too many poor quality images. It's too slow to load. There's too many links, and there's too many other distractions. So make sure that what you present is clear, concise, and really simple. Yeah. Don't fall over at the hurdles. They're all things that you can look at and go, oh, it's a bit texty, or my images look a little bit rubbish on the phone. I need to choose some new ones, or I've got so many links in there, it's really slow to load. Yep. So there's a few do's and don'ts, right, for falling at the third hurdle, right? And the third hurdle is getting our clients to actually engage with the content, right? We've got through the spam filter. We've got them to open it. Now, when they've opened it, let's make it work for us, right? And we can do that by not having tiny, tiny images, or really blurry ones, or really big fat ones that take ages to load, and doing other things that slow our sites down. So we've chosen a non-spammy title, okay, and we've focused on making an offer that's clear and compelling in the first few lines, right? So when we do open the email, often we have got a bit of text, right? Keep it really short and keep it clear and concise and to the point, right? Don't be shy about what you want and what you're doing, yeah? When it opens, we want to make sure that our key message is above the fold. Now, sometimes if we've got a store like on WooCommerce or Shopify and we're pulling in content, then we can't always get the offer, the actual product right at the top of the mail. It doesn't always work out, right? So you've got to make sure you've got a short statement there that is allowing them then to scroll down to your product offer. Okay. The main thing is it's got to be top and it's got to be central. There's only one way to look at it, and that's to look at it on a mobile, right? The first thing you need to do if you've got some images is make sure they're web optimized, right? So don't go building your email and thinking about optimizing your images later. Look at your image, right? And make sure it's small.
And if I may say, I've had emails from one of the traders, and they do a very nice looking one, but it's all very image heavy, and even with the text, so that they can get the look that they want, the text is on the image, so it's all image, so to speak, and it took so long to load, not only on my desktop, but it was pointless even looking at it on the mobile. So it's very important that if you are going to have those images, that they are web optimized. Don't forget to optimize your images with tinyjpeg.com. That's a great little app that you can use online to optimize your images as well. However, having said that, it is better to stick within the templates that are provided by the EDMs, so that you have a standard format and you know that it's going to come through at the other end and look the way that it's supposed to, rather than take a long time to load.
Yeah, and just to reiterate that, from a spam filter's point of view, right, it's looked at the who's sending the email, it's looked at the title. If it then looks at the content and there's no content except an image, images are often a vector for people to insert viruses and things like that. And if there's no alt text on the image, there's no description on the image, then the spam filter, and the image is really heavy, the spam filter will dump it.
Yeah.
Right? You'll just end up in spam. So if you're going to do an image-based email, and I love an image-based email, I'm going to show you a good one later on, then make sure you've tagged up the image correctly so that the spam filter's got something to read. Okay? So thanks, Madeline. So next thing, if we send someone an email and they don't want to buy something, let's make sure that the links are there in our system to both our product brand and to social media. Right? The last thing is you must test it. The simplest way to test it is to send it to yourself, right? And open it on your phone. Click on the links and make sure they go all the way through to the shopping cart and the product is correct. Okay? Especially if you've used Shopify and you've made a collection, right? Make sure you're not going through to one of the broken out bits of the collection. Make sure it's landing exactly the right place and that you can get from the collection to the purchase page, right? The simplest mistake that people make is not testing it. And a lot of us don't have time or equipment or technology, etc., to do a lot of this, but you can always just send it to yourself. Before you send it out to the database, send it to yourself, send it to a colleague, send it to a family member, get them to open it, right? Lastly, when we get to the end of it, the whole process, we need to review the results. And the key objective in a small business isn't to rule the world, right? It's just to do more of what works for our current email list, right? That's your goal, right? Find out what works for your current list. When your list gets bigger, it'll change, right? When the season changes, it'll change. When the business mix changes, it'll change, right? But what you need to do is more of what works for your current list right now, okay? And you can only do that by going back and seeing which emails were successful and try and work out how to do that again. You know, what were the features that got it through? What were the features that got more open rates? You know, and it might just be it was the right time, right? But also that might be the way you've done it. So I wanted to show a few examples, right? And in reviewing this with Madeline, I realized that I sounded like a bit of an alcoholic because my emails are from Dan Murphy's, Naked Wines, Parkville Cellulars, etc., etc. That's not the case. I've just got an active interest in a bargain. So in the case of this Dan Murphy's one, you can see that the proposition is front and central, right? It's a new catalogue. That's what they want to advertise, right? And they've supplemented that with an incentive down the bottom of the page in bold, right? Saying that you can click and collect for no extra cost. So they've tiered it, right? And they've also personalized it. they know my name, they've put a couple of products in there, and they've told me that the new catalog is out. So I think that's a really well constructed email. When you open that, right, even if I don't read it, I know there's a new catalog out, right? Perfect. Yep. I think that's job done. If I do want to buy, I know that there's a temporal aspect to it, an urgency, which is that I can click and collect at no extra cost. So they've got me on two different levels there, right? All interesting, all bit of a deal, right? So that's a well-constructed email. I didn't bother to copy the rest of it, right? I just wanted to show you why I thought that was good. So this is one which has got almost no text, and that's from a sunglasses company that I bought glasses from, and they don't have an offer, right? There's no price, there's no deal, there's nothing, right? What they've got is a new color. And so all they've done is contact me to say, we've got a new color, it's olive, right? They're bang on the top of their game when it comes to contemporary things like that. So they've diversified their product by adding a new color. They've used that new color to go out to the market and contact their database, because it's interesting, it's funky, it's a beautiful graphic, and it's a good opportunity to touch base with their client base. And olive is a weird color that covers multiple seasons, so good choice by them. So that's an example of an email which has got no price offer in it, and the call to action is really just to think about the color. It also demonstrates their kind of brand expertise and their kind of contemporary place in the space. So that's a kind of alternative email. And if you right click on that email, you can actually see that the image is really well tagged up. Lastly, I wanted to show you a text-based email. And so obviously this was another alcohol-based one, which came to the attention of the boss. All I've done here is really, they've basically said they've got great wines at excellent prices, and they're going to give me a couple of glasses if I make an order. So what that is really, it's a giveaway ad, which is buy our product and we'll give you these freebies. Okay, and the freebies have got a value, right? Now that value doesn't have to be an absolute value. It's probably the most expensive price you could find them from on the internet, but they're giving away something for free. So buy our wine at the regular price, have no discount, but get some glasses for free, right? That's just the way they've done that promotionally. Again, right above the fold in the email, the call to action, yes please, not buy now, right? So you don't feel like you're purchasing, you feel like you're getting something for free. So by changing the tab to yes please from purchase, confirm, product, sale, inquire, they've made it a more effective piece of communication. But their strategy is, in this case, like I said, no discount, right? No special offer, but it's a giveaway. So there are different ways of doing different offers and communicating them well in EDMs. So if you don't have an image, but you can come up with a good text-based proposition, here's a great example. Just make sure your call to action or your color and movement, which in this case is the blue bar, is right there. Okay, so that was just some examples that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to come back on this slide, and I used this slide pretty much last week as well, which was just to talk about links, because links are important, right? Links are really important to page structure because Google likes them, because it shows that you're organized, it shows you can get around. It also then shows whether you're connected to the outside world, it shows them whether you do social media, shows them whether you have authority and things like that. When we have links on an email, we have to be really, really careful, right? Because they slow the email down and they draw the attention of spam filters, right? So what do you need? You need a link to the offer or the product that you're trying to sell. You need a link to getting help. Yep. And we basically need a link to our social media connections. That's really it, right? Don't go mad on lots and lots of different links to get around the store, different categories, different products, etc., etc. If you're a small business, keep it really simple, right? If you do want to have links for the website, maybe just put your categories in there, right? Children's clothes, children's shoes, booties, toddlers, right? Whatever you want to do, but just make sure that you haven't got everything listed like you have in the footer, where you might have 30 or 40 different links, because that's going to pull you up to the spam filter and slow your page load down, right? So you do need links, but keep them really, really simple. The product or the offer, depending on how you framed it, the link to your social media, and a link to get help. Keep it simple. So lastly, we've sent out a great email. We've got through the spam filter. We've chosen a title that isn't spammy, but is captivating enough for the user to actually touch it with their thumb and read the deal. When we've opened, we've got our information in an image or in text above the fold, and our image isn't too fat, and it's tagged up well for the email, and the clients look through and it's clicked through to the website, right? Maybe they've purchased, maybe they haven't. So the job is done, but we need to measure our success. And when you look at things like MailChimp and stuff like that, they give you a free dashboard, right? And there are lots and lots of different kinds of dashboards that you can get for your email marketing. But the key data that you want to know is how many did you send and how many arrived successfully, right? So you can see some of them didn't arrive, right? And why not? So it used to be my job to find out why not. Often people would just put a comma between the .com and the .au in their address instead of a full stop, right? And we change it to a full stop, next time it would arrive, okay? Sometimes it's a work email and they'd gone. Sometimes the company had changed. Sometimes there was a hard bounce. We could just delete them or edit them out to try and tidy up our database. It was a free way of tidying up our database, and often you can tidy it up for the positive, okay? So of the successful deliveries that we got, so ones that actually got in there, how many got opened? This was a great email. Half of the people opened it. Some business genres get about 2%, right? Some get between around 19%, and a few businesses get about 20 to 28%, you know, depending on your brand, depending on the genre of business that you're in and things like that, right? So of the people who opened it, right, and we were very successful, half of the people who opened it, we got 8,000 clicks. That would be spectacularly successful, right? Normally, if you get 6,000 people opening it, you get a few thousand clicks if it's gone really, really well, right? So did anyone unsubscribe? And you can see whether they subscribed or unsubscribed. So this doesn't tell us about sales, right? Because we can do that in another piece of software. It just tells us about how successful our email was, which is what's the number, how many got successfully delivered, how many got opened, how many people clicked around inside our email. And that tells us whether our communication was successful or not. You can get way more complicated dashboards, right? And these dashboards will tell you how much you sold in New Zealand, how much you sold in Australia, how many minutes or hours after after the email was sent were they opened, what the click-through rate was, what they clicked through to, on which shops, what products they looked at, whether if any of them had been remarketed before, you know, incredibly amounts of details. Some will take you right into the actual page where the client transacted. So every system has a different kind of dashboard that's available, but the one you really want to start on is the basic one, which tells you how many I sent, how many got opened, and how many people got click through. Because what we really want to do is measure those basic metrics, right? And that is get people to open them. And when we look at our emails and we go back and we see that we had one that was successful, that's what we can learn from. When we look at an email and we did it, we think, wow, we sent out 2,000 and only 150 people, opened it. Why was that one not successful? Then you can look and try and learn from that as well. One of the interesting things I heard during the week from, I think it was Neil Patel, was that there's a study in the United States that found that the best time to send emails was between Tuesday and Thursday. So Tuesday morning after 10 o'clock and Thursday up until about 4 or 5 o'clock. And they found by looking at multiple companies and multiple genres, that seemed to be the most effective time for sending a marketing email. And that might be because on Friday people are thinking about different things. On Monday they're trying to get back into work, and on the weekend they're busy, right? So, you know, they've got family, they've got kids, they've got partners, they're going out, etc., etc. So they're not reading mail. But midweek, for that study group, seemed to be really, really effective. So it could be just that you sent your email when you had time to do it on Friday night, right? And everyone was watching some big football match or the Olympics, or there was a great movie on one of the channels, or, you know, there was breaking news. So it's not always to do with your email. It can be to do with the time and the circumstances.
One of the questions that I do get is how often should I send out an email? And, you know, some companies send me an email every day and I just skim them. You know, as you said earlier, you generally look at the heading, maybe the first couple of lines, and that's it. You skim through and delete, unless it grabs your attention or it's something that you're actually looking for. How often do you think they should be sent out?
Well, okay, so I might have a controversial opinion on this, which marketing people might not agree with, which is that, as I said at the start, no one needs an extra email, right? We get hundreds as it is right now, right? And we're really busy people, and we scan and look through them on the phone. So send an email when you've got something to say, right? Before you touch the keyboard, what's it for, and what's my offer, right? If you can't do that, don't send one, right? If you haven't done one for a while, then yes, as a discipline, you need to send one. You need to touch base with the people who are out there, right?
My view is, you know, I would be sending something once a month if possible, you know, unless you've got some particular campaigns that are happening, you know, to advise of events that are happening, that sort of thing, do them more regularly. Or if you've got the time and you've got something interesting to say, do it more regularly. But, you know, if you keep it at the one a month, I think that's pretty good going.
So a lot of people aim for 28 days, okay? And in small businesses, we said, are time poor, right? We're time poor, we're resource poor, and we have a limited amount of experience, right? And a limited amount of skill sets. So the people who are successful are the people who schedule it, right? The people who are successful at social media aren't necessarily good at it. What they are tenacious, persistent, and consistent, right? Rather than brilliant, right? So what happens with email marketing, it's the same thing, right? Which is that if you don't schedule it, it won't get done, right? If you don't enjoy it, you don't feel good at it, right? And it's just another chore and it's not scheduled, it won't get done, right? You've got to nag yourself with a reminder, right? So it's about planning, right? If you sit down at the start of each year or the start of each financial year and you think, okay, well, what are the key events, right? Well, I'm in clothing, or I'm in footwear, or I'm in hair care, right? If you're in hair, right, then basically you've got the seasonal changes, you've got all the holiday weekends, you've got the long weekends, you've got Mother's Day, you've got Father's Day, you've got all sorts of various pinpoints along the calendars, right? And you better be out there, right? Because those are your opportunities to do some email marketing and your opportunity to do some social media marketing, right? The hairdressers are never busier than before Christmas. And, you know, I don't know about other communities, but in Orthodox communities, they're never busier than before Easter, right? You've got to get your hair done, right? So they're all there, right? Sit down for a couple of hours every year and or every few months and work out what the key points are in the calendar that you can market around. You know that you're going to have winter inventory. You know that you're going to have summer inventory. And unless you have a great year, you're going to have some left over, right? And if you've got limited space, you need to clear that inventory, right? So therefore, you've got a marketing campaign. You know, every year when the Melbourne Cup is on, and that's horse racing, you know, and it's a long weekend, and it's the start of, you know, the spring season. It all combines together, right? It's not going to change. You already know when it is next year. Christmas doesn't move. It's the same date every year, right? So we know that those are there. And just with your social media marketing and keeping your website up to date, try and think of the EDM in the same way. What's the EDM am I going to do, right? When do I need to send out my first EDM to say, pre-order your Christmas hampers? I can tell you that I've done one on the 1st of September, right? And because corporates are thinking about it. So don't think we should be sending one out now. It's September. Get in your diary when you do your planning at Easter, or you're planning at Christmas, or you're planning at the end of the financial year. Have something to say, have an offer and try and do it every 28 days and diarise it.
That's great advice, Peter. I think that if everyone can structure a time or an element of time into their busy week, just to put 1 hour aside or even 30 minutes aside to jot down their notes, use an Excel sheet, get something happening so that when that time comes around, you've already got those thoughts down on paper. You really need to jot it down on paper so that you can recall it a lot easier down the track. As you go along, you can just keep adding it to it and then set up an action plan. So
I've got a customer, and we'll call her Jules because that's her name, and she this week got a $28,000 inquiry with a margin which is more than 10%, and she's got that largely down to the fact that her SEO is quite good, and the client had a look at her website and signed up to a newsletter, and based on the fact that she received a newsletter that she liked, she decided to make an inquiry. And Jules found that out because she asked her why she chose her business, right? Small business, 1.5 women. And she said, well, you appeared in the list, right? And you were the first person, which was not a big company, on the SEO page. And she said, and then I came to the website and it seemed okay, but I wanted to know a little bit more about you. I wasn't ready to call up. I had a few people on my list. I signed up to your newsletter. It hit the spot for me. I felt it was really that you were, that it wasn't too salesy, and that that you'd listened to me. And so I phoned up and inquired, and then she wanted to talk to her face to face. But it's it does work, and it's worth the effort. Obviously, for $28,000 transaction, there's a significant amount of money involved in terms of in terms of margin. So it does work. She's a 1.5 person business.
Thank you, Peter, for yet again another informative, and now we've got an action-based workshop again. Email marketing is another channel. It's a very good channel for your digital marketing. So if you haven't started one, have a think about it. MailChimp, and there's quite a few others out there that are free, and then you can pay to upgrade. So, good luck with your digital marketing, and we'll be back again next month, and hopefully we'll see you at our next meeting. Thanks again, Peter.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Madalen.